Hey fam, what's going on? This is Jessica Pickens. Welcome to Pickens Realities, our blended family truths podcast.
All right, guys. Well, we're gonna get started. Hi, welcome to another episode of Pickens Realities and Blended Family Truths. I am Jayla, the elite of them all, the greatest daughter, the greatest sibling, the greatest aunt, the greatest family member. Congratulations.
And you know what? Okay, y'all, every week we go through this, right? And so I'm Jessica Pickens. I am the mom and the wife of the Pickens family.
Yes.
And welcome to Pickens Realities and Blended Family Truths.
And today we have a special guest, Mr.
Ron Deal.
I'm like, Jayla, you usually say it. What are you doing? You throwing Ron for a loop. He's going to be like, you don't know my name? You forgot already?
Well, I do know my name, so that's okay. Not a problem.
Okay. No. So, well, welcome. We appreciate you coming on the podcast with us today.
Thank you.
So go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us what you do. Where do you come from? Stuff like that.
Well, you know what? I know you guys are in Chicago. I grew up in Des Moines, Iowa. I feel like I'm an upper Midwestern person. Yeah. So whenever I get to Chicago or anywhere in those parts, I feel like I'm home again. It just feels like home. I live in Arkansas now. I've lived here twice. I've lived in Texas twice. I've lived in California. I've lived a bunch of places. Nan and I are coming up on our 39th anniversary.
Oh, my gosh.
Our marriage and family. We have 3 boys and 1 grandchild, and who is 3 months old, and we are absolutely loving that because you get to hug them, squeeze them, change them, have fun, talk to them, and then give them back. Yeah. And somebody else has to take care of them, and I'm just thrilled about all of that. So I run a ministry called Family Life Blended. Mm-hmm. I started about a little over 30 years ago, actually, doing blended family ministry specifically. And I've been in marriage and family stuff for close to 37 years. But wow. I found myself stepping into a space as a therapist. I'm a trained marriage and family therapist, but I wanted to be able to prevent problems more than just fix them. And so I found myself just trying to work with single parent families, blended families, couples who were divorcing, all kinds of family situations that needed support. And what I didn't realize when I started trying to do blended family ministry and education and training is that very few people were doing that 31 years ago. And so I woke up to, wow, there's a need here, and I'm just going to try. And long story short, it became my life. We've now produced more resources in the last 20 years than the marriage and family field had produced for blended families in the last 50 years. And so we have videos and books and resources and a podcast called Family Life Blended, and live events and live stream events and all kinds of things that are just so much fun for me to get to be a part of.
Wow, that's awesome. Awesome. So can we have are you a part of a blended family?
Yeah, so my story is no. I'm the weird guy who why are you in this space? And I got into this space. My wife says I'm the male obstetrician of the stepfamily world.
Okay.
That's a good analogy.
If you've ever, we had 3 babies with 3 different male doctors. And at some point you look at each other and you go, why are we trusting this guy? Because he's never actually carried a baby before. He doesn't know what it is. He's never had an epidural in his life. What are we talking? Well, but they do know something about the process, and they really understand from the outside in. And that's what I do. Is I work from the outside in. What I love about folks like you is that you're working from the inside out, and together we make a good team. So here we are.
That is correct. Awesome. Absolutely correct.
Awesome. So we talk to us a little bit about you being a counselor. How did you get in that role? What made you want to start or become a counselor?
Yeah. So my first job, I was a youth pastor. So I was working with teenagers.
Oh, well, that'll do it.
Half of, bless me, right? And half of them I didn't understand. And so I didn't understand these kids I was working with, and some of them had complex family backgrounds, and some of them didn't. But I just feel like I needed more training, and so after doing that for 5 years, I went back to graduate school to get a degree in marriage and family therapy, so that I could better help all kinds of families. And that really was the impetus that led me down the road of saying, oh, now I understand these kids and what was going on in their world, their life, their family, the complexity of living between two homes, all that stuff. And I came out of graduate school going, okay, I don't want to just fix by doing therapy with people. I want to prevent. How do we prevent? How do we enrich and grow families so that they don't have to struggle and their kids don't have to struggle? And I will tell you that today, 30 years later, I still feel like I'm doing youth ministry. I'm just doing it through their parents, through the adults.
That's good.
Who are influencing the children.
Yeah. That's super good.
Yeah.
I will say this. Number one, I think that being able to have the courage to go back and get the education and training to match what obviously God was calling you to do from the perspective of working with the youth and then backing your way into family through the youth. Because most of everything that we talk about and really the most major consequences that are suffered, and I was really going to say collateral damage. That's a like negative term, but it's probably the truth. In blended families, it's the children, right? And so being able to understand to your point, how do the adults make wiser, better decisions to do the best you can to prevent the worst type of harm and hurt and damage, mental, spiritual, etc., that the children might experience is the overall absolute, thing that I'm most passionate about, because unfortunately we were not successful in doing that through the majority of our children's upbringing and getting knowledge of that now that our top four, who were the initial four when we got married, when we blended, have been able to share their hurts and pains in a different way that we didn't ask about. That reality right there, Ron, it's painful. So first and foremost, just thank you for all that you're doing, and kudos to you, and thank you for the service as far as just even being willing to go that extra step, because going back to school and being like, okay, let me get some more training and this is that and the other to be able to do this work. That's like huge. Yeah. It's super huge.
I appreciate that. And you've hit on something that's important to me. So let me just say something about the hard and the hope in all of this for kids. The hard is, a series of unwanted losses in their life that are a result of decisions that adults make. Often is the case. Not always. There are some blended families that are absolutely born out of just tragedy. A parent died. Nobody was at fault. It wasn't anybody's decision. But things unravel for a lot of families. And good, bad, or ugly, it's just hard on kids. It's an unwanted loss. But then I call that the earthquake, right? The divorce is the earthquake. But then there's all the aftershocks. Well, now I got to move houses. I got to move away from grandma. I got a new school. I got to make new friends. I got a new church. I got to figure out my new social group. What? Mom's dating? I got a stepdad. Now I got a new adjustment to make. Now I got stepbrothers. We're moving to another house with another friends, another social group, new school, new church. Like every one of those is an aftershock of unwanted loss. And that has a cumulative effect on kids. It's just hard. It's just hard. Yes. And no wonder they're not necessarily thrilled about having a stepsister who borrows their clothes without asking all the time. Like, no wonder they're just not immediately falling in love with a step-parent. No wonder, because it's just more stuff they have to deal with because of other people's decisions. Now, that's the hard. Now, here's the hope. We know very clearly from longitudinal research that follows blended families over time. You ready for this? Here's the good news. Blended families done right are, I'll use the word redemptive, in the life of children. Yes. In one generation, kids that have been through the hard in a healthy, stable step-family environment come out of that more looking like children in biological family units. They make better choices about the mates they choose when they get to be adults, and they themselves have more stable long-term adult relationships. And the mitigating factor in all of this is a healthy, stable stepfamily. So stepfamilies done right are redemptive. But I got to add, stepfamilies done wrong bring more hard.
Yeah.
And just brings more pain. And so that's the motivation for anybody listening right now to go, learning matters. Getting stepfamily smart, as we like to say, really is important, not just for your well-being, but for your kids and for the next generation. And yes, there's water under the bridge. Yes, there's heart that's going to need some healing. And there's hope for the future. Keep investing in your family.
See, I would like to think that our family was, even though the stuff was the stuff, I feel like we're a step family done right.
Now we are. I would agree. We processed through and got to that.
Oh, like based on what he said, I feel like we are possibly, from start to finish, because there's always going to be hard, whether you're a step family, or a biological family.
Life is hard.
How you continue to stay with each other. You and Dad made a choice to stay with each other, create a 2-parent household, and we grew up, and now people come over and like, we didn't know that y'all weren't blood siblings. And then so I'm here with you. I understand that. So with that being said, what have you learned in the field of being a counselor to step families? What are some of the hurdles that you've seen and experienced?
Yeah, great question. And let me just say they are vast. And by the way, I do step family training. If you have anybody listening or watching right now who is a counselor, educator, coach, relationship coach, we do 12-hour intensive step family therapy training from time to time where people can get on our national referral list for people who are competent to help other folks. We're always looking for more people who want to do that because we need lots of people out there. So when I say there are vast, it's because there are so many different step family configurations. Actually, hired a PhD in math to figure this out for me once. And do you know, there are 67 different possible step family configurations. Really? 67. Just think for a second about some of the variables there. If a man was widowed and he marries a woman who's never been married before, well, that's a different kind of marriage than two people who were both divorced. Right?
Yes.
Or one of them been divorced and one of them was widowed. Or, one of them had a child before getting married with another person, and this one had children with somebody they were married to for 30 years. Or that's just the marital combinations. Then he brings kids, or she brings kids, or they both bring kids, or they have an ours baby. We like to call it yours, mine, and ours.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Or they adopted, or they foster, or they... Are you with me? 67 different potential configurations. So not all step family solutions fit every problem. It depends on the configuration. How did you get here? Have you been through one devastating family loss, or 2 or 5? Mm-hmm. Again, children, ages of children. Oh my goodness, 5 and under. It's an easier blend when they're young. When they're teenagers, between 10 and 15, that's the toughest time to. But what if they're adults? What if they're 30 and they got a wife and kids and a mortgage? Like, how often do they want to hang out with you ever as a step parent? Like, probably not much. What if they live 3 states away? All right, you get me.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different factors. And so what we try to do is we try to help in a general way people understand the factors that apply to most blended stories. But then there's always those outlier things that we're trying to educate people. Well, what if it's this? What if it's that? What if your stepchildren are part-time? You really don't get them very often. Mm-hmm. But what if they're with you full-time because their parent is deceased? And so you're not a part-time step, but you're a full-time 24/7 step parent. That's different than somebody who gets them 2 weekends a month. Mm-hmm. So there's all these little mitigating factors that we just try to speak to and help people with in general. Having said all that, I would say some of the biggies are the whole bonding process between step-parent and stepchildren. Mm-hmm. What are the rules and how does the parent and step-parent work together as a team? That's huge. If they're unified, it really helps the family move forward. If they're disunified, we got trouble left and right.
Yeah.
you also have, how do we trust each other in a marriage after one or both of us have been through hard relationships that ended? We've been through loss and breakup, and we know the pain of somebody walking out on you. How do you now love somebody else and give them your whole heart? That trust issue is huge for couples. And then there's the co-parenting stuff. And not every step family has a co-parenting. Children are not always moving between homes. If the parents were deceased, then there's no other home. But more often than not, there is. And sometimes kids are going between 3 and 4 different homes out of your household. And the more co-parents there are, the more room there is for argument and discussion and conflict, right? And the more conflict there is, the more that creates an environment for children that's sort of hostile to their emotional well-being. And all of that ripples over into, you and mom fight all the time. Why am I happy about my stepmom being here today? I would rather be at mom's house than be here with stepmom. Like, all of those things are always connected. And so creating peace, as much as it's up to you, between co-parents is one way to actually help children embrace their step-parent more. So, I know that's sort of a, wow, how's that all work? Well, we could get into it if you want to, but the bottom line is everything's connected.
Yeah.
And so the more complex your family, the more factors there are that make it difficult to really like and love each other.
Yeah.
I think that, from little stuff to big stuff, it's almost like, and as we've navigated our blended family life, little stuff like, and I'm just going to pick one thing as far as that it can move you towards bonding or away from bonding, right? And I'm going to talk about something that we learned, that you brought up when we were at your step family summit, right, in Texas, which is where we met you, which is tied to what we're talking about, right? Which is, for us out the gate, we actually don't use the term stepmom, stepdad, stepbrother. We out the gate, it was, if we are talking to someone outside of our home, it's, that's we just say mom and dad. The kids just say mom and dad. But when we're explaining our complex situation, right, we say bonus mom, bonus dad. So as opposed, because to us, I don't, and maybe it would, I guess it started with Tyrone and I, because y'all weren't old enough to like know or understand, but it's like the term stepmom and stepdad, Ron, have such a negative connotation to us for some reason. And so when we were trying to pick and choose battles, right, and figure out how do we do this thing in a way that brings the most positive space, energy, opportunities, we chose to, when we talk to people, we don't say stepmom, stepdad, we say bonus mom, bonus dad. And I'm going somewhere with this. I know this is a little lengthy way around the barn, but I actually, because that's just one of those things, right? If it's something that causes or creates a negative view, then it can, it just it lays the groundwork or manifestation, possible manifestation for a negative atmosphere. And what I want you to speak to is, I would like people to hear and understand why. Talk to us about why you purposely choose to still say stepmom, stepfamily. Is family life blended is the ministry, right?
Yes.
But when you're talking, and with your books and your resources and materials, I want people to understand, let's talk about stepfamily versus bonus family and how that plays into how people accept or address, being a blended family.
It's actually a very important question. I'm glad you asked it. Because it speaks to expectations and the desire, you said it, to be a family. To break down the walls so people feel like they can love and trust each other and they feel like they're connected as family. That's ultimately what everybody wants. And so language is going to either help that or hinder that a little bit. But it's complicated. If you pinned me down and said, Ron, what is the right term for families to use? I would say to you, I have no earthly idea. The right term is the one you co-create. The one that seems to fit for your household and your home in your context. And there's all kinds of, places parts of the country, parts of the world use different terminology. It means different things to different people. In the military, the blended family is only a biracial couple. Only, ever. You never use blended for anything other than a biracial couple in the military family. And so it's stepfamily, period. In the southeastern part of the United States, Georgia, South Carolina, parts of Arkansas, Alabama, a blended family is a biracial couple. Stepfamily is the predominant term there because blended carries a different connotation. But more and more increasingly in our world, people use the terms sort of interchangeably. So it just depends. Around the world, UK, South Africa, Australia, stepfamily is the predominant term. It used to be in the United States, but that changed about 20 years ago. So, see, my point is, I don't know. You have to decide for you. Now, here's the thing I want to caution adults about. Adults will say things to me like, well, there's no steps in this household, Ron. We don't use that term. We're just, everybody's kid is my kid. You know, I don't care if I gave birth to him or not. That's my child. And I say to them, fabulous. I see your heart. Your heart's telling me you want to love these kids and you want them to love you and you want to be one big happy family.
Right.
Wonderful. I love that part of you. Now here's the catch.
Right.
Right.
You might have, when you say to your stepdaughter, honey, you're my daughter, you're not my stepdaughter. You say that in love with good intentions, but you might just violate her heart because she's got one mama.
Yes.
And you just tried, in her eyes, to replace her
that.
mom in her heart when you said that. She may feel offended as if you are trying to move mom out and step into that space. The last thing you want her doing is thinking you're unsafe. You're trying to steal my mom's spot.
Yeah.
So what for you was a conduit to a healthy relationship, using the term daughter, for your stepdaughter might actually not be a conduit at all. You may have just caused her to push back from you and trust you less. So the right term is the term you co-create as a family unit. In one of my books, Preparing to Blend, which is a premarital guide to couples planning to get married, but this principle carries over to married families listening to us right now, is, hey, if you just made some assumptions along the way about what the right term is, maybe it's time to actually have a conversation.
Yeah.
And approach all the kids in your household. Just imagine this little dialogue. Sitting down one night, having dinner. Don't make it a big deal. Just go, hey, you know what? It occurred to me. I've been using these terms left and right ever since we've come together as a family. I call you my daughter. I call you my son. I never thought to ask you.
Right.
Are you guys okay with that? How do you feel about that? Is there ever a time, maybe you're comfortable with it here in the household, when I'm saying, daughter, would you pass the salt? And she says, yeah, I'm fine with that. But if your mom was in the room, would you be okay with me calling you my daughter? With your mom within earshot, you might get a totally different answer from that young lady than the answer she'd give if it was just the two of you sitting around the house. That's really important, that you contextualize, give respect and consideration to all those other emotional, relational attachments that this young lady has in her life, and her concern about her relationship with her mom and how her mom feels about hearing you call her your daughter. All of that stuff matters. So you better have a conversation and figure it out together. Just imagine you have a 15-minute dialogue and she says, I'd rather you do this. And you go, you know what? I'm good with that. And at the end of that little conversation, you now know what to do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You now know what family means to both of you. And you have the right label for today. And let me just land it with this illustration. Anybody who's ever been married has a mother-in-law and a father-in-law and maybe a brother and a sister-in-law. Now, I often ask people, so on the day you got married, did you start calling your mother-in-law mom? Now, I know some people who do, and that's entirely comfortable for them, and they don't feel like they're being disrespectful to their biological mother or nothing. Like, it's okay that they do that. It's okay with them. It's okay with their bio mom. It's okay with their now mother-in-law. But I know lots of people who never, ever, ever, ever call their mother-in-law mom, because that's a term that is saved and reserved for a very special person. A, and B, they don't have the kind of relationship with their mother-in-law that they would want to call them mom. It's the same thing. It is basically the same principle applied to step relationships. I know other people who didn't start out calling their mother-in-law mom, but after a few years, their relationship has grown and developed and the term changes. that is absolutely the case with blended families. Terms will change to reflect the deepening of your relationship. So here's the punchline. Adults need to relax about this. They need to stop pushing their agenda on the kids. Stop pushing your agenda on your kids. Your agenda is that they love you the way you want them to love you. That's your agenda. That's your need. That is not necessarily their need. Stop pushing your agenda. Listen to them. Meet them where they are. And that's where it starts. It will not stop there. As time goes on, your relationship will grow and deepen, and so will the terms to reflect that. Be okay with what is.
It's crazy. Okay, so I'm listening to everything you're saying, and I'm like, this
So
is
good.
so crazy, because I've never heard something I was feeling like talked about in this manner. So this is
that's our example.
This is my bonus mom, right? So we were, we've been calling her mom for a very long time.
Which, by the way, on a previous episode, I thought it was by choice. I had no idea until about 5 or 6 weeks ago that my husband, aka my bonus baby's daddy, their daddy,
he made us call her mom.
They didn't, because I gave them a choice, Ron. Even before I knew that was the right thing to do, I gave a choice. Do you want to call me Miss Jessica? What do you want to? I did not know until Dominic was on here with us too, that he pulled them to the side and said, no, you're going to call her mom, which made me feel absolutely horrible because I thought it was their choice out the beginning. So I just jumped right into this role, not knowing that I could have been, I did. I know for you, it was offensive, and because of multiple things, not just because of the relationship with your mom, but also because of other things you had been through as far as the previous relationship with the other female that your dad was dating prior to me. There's all these dynamics, and I had no idea. I had no idea that one thing, that choice being removed from them, caused that level of damage. And that's why I had the tissue.
It wasn't a level of damage. It was just like uncomfortability. It wasn't damage. It was just like very, very uncomfortable. And then especially when...
What was it I said that you connected to?
When you were just saying like when your mom's around and she calls you and like you have to call her mom. Like it was so uncomfortable because it's like I could feel the heat from my mom when I would call her mom. So then I'm already knowing like whenever my mom was around, mom would feel like y'all are probably acting different when y'all mom is around, but it's not necessarily like we're acting different because we're like trying to, but it's like we're uncomfortable because this is our mom, but this is our mom.
Yes, exactly. And you're caught in the middle and you don't want to sacrifice one of those relationships for the other. Psychologically, we call this a loyalty conflict. You're loyal to your biological mom. Of course you are. That's always where children's first loyalties will be. Step parents have to know that because the minute you try to erase and replace, I call it, a biological parent in the heart of a child, you are the one who gets erased and replaced because you're not safe. I can't trust you with this part of my heart. And so
that's real.
That's real. Loyalty conflict. Now, Gary Chapman and I wrote a book called Building Love Together in Blended Families. This is Gary Chapman, the love language guy. Okay. And we reframe that loyalty conflict to love conflicts. Because at the heart of what Jayla's describing is, I want to love these people. I want to like these people. I want to get along with these people. But I don't want that to create a competition between them or for it to create a competition in my heart where I feel like I'm being unloving.
Yeah.
That is a hard thing for a child, which is why, let me jump around. See the triangle in your head, Jayla, Jessica, and bio mom. See that little triangle of relationships? Let me jump around the both sides of this from stepmom Jessica's standpoint. I love what you said about saying to the kids, hey, you can call me Miss Jessica. Let's talk it through. Let's figure it out. You gave them permission. I love that. Here's the other side between you and the biological mother. We highly recommend that step parents say something like, hey, look, bio mom, I want you to know that I know that you're the mom and not me. I'm a bonus. I'm an add-on. I'm going to try to bring some good things to Jayla's life, but I'm never, ever, ever, ever going to get between you and her. I want to honor you behind your back. I'm going to speak well of you when your kids are at my house because you're the mom. Mm-hmm. Thank you for your time. Have a nice day. Now, we call this the no threat message because what you're trying to reduce in the biological mother's heart is the fear, the threat that somehow this new woman's going to take my place in my children's lives. And she's going to push me out. She's going to take over. She's going to be more of an influence on them than I am. You never want the bio parent thinking that because then they feel like they have to go to war with you. And all that does is increase the level of tension and conflict, and it makes Jayla's life doubly hard because she's in love conflict all the time.
Child, that's the story of my life. That is
it was
the story of my life. Like they were like, I feel like it was like until we got a little bit older, maybe that conversation of the no threat message was had, just because there had been so much like problems, and it's like, dude, like I know you're their mom. I'm not trying to be their mom. Like, you know, relax.
Well, I actually never said that because to be honest, like looking back, I was trying to be your mom because from my perspective, so you have to understand our dynamics were different, Ron, and I'm not, and it's wrong now looking back, right? But this is the one thing I actually want to talk about and address so that other people know how to figure this stuff out. When Tyrone and I met, he and your mom weren't talking. They didn't talk. It was a very hostile situation. We exchanged you all, and our dynamic is different too, Ron, because he had full custody. So you know, it was a different situation, right? And so in my mind, I was supposed to jump in and play the role of your mother because you all lived with us, and from the information that I had, that role was missing, right? And when they weren't talking. So, but I did honor her. I always honored her. That's why I forced and said to your dad, you got to fix this. This is not going to work. You cannot have them not be able to have their mom come to the house. Because I had a son. I'd never been married. I think we talked about that, right? And regardless of it not working out with my son's father, I never withheld his ability to see and interact with his child, right? And I was like, no, this has got to be fair game. So to your point though, Ron, and what I'm trying to get to is and I never actually had and she's been on the podcast. Jerry is Jayla's mom, right? And so and we're I would say we've worked through all of this, and it's a blessing now where we are. But even though it was like I knew I hadn't given birth to you all, but in my mind, I thought I was doing what I was supposed to do. I thought I was being your mom in the way that I was supposed to do it because of where the circumstances were. I did not have correct and proper knowledge to split that out, Ron, and go, like, how do you do that, Ron? How do you go, yeah, I'm in this role, and I am mothering you every day. I'm taking on the responsibilities of being your mother. I'm mothering you every day. But I still have to know I didn't give birth to you, and that's a different bond. That's a different place. That is your mom, which I know. And we talked about that there is absolutely a difference. We've learned that, like that stuff out there. Oh, I love all my kids the same. Even stop it. Like, just cut it out. It's like you said, it's a noble thought, noble cause. But the reality is that there is a difference between bio and bonus all day, every day, because there just is. There's a different relationship with kids that came from your womb or from your seed than kids that did not.
Yeah.
But I feel like there wasn't anything, like we didn't have no feeling of lacking a mom. Cause
I didn't say that you did.
No. I know you're saying that you were trying to fulfill what you thought needed to be fulfilled. So I'm saying, like, from our perspective, we didn't think, we were lacking a mom until we was told we got to call you mom. And I'm like, hold on, wait, what?
But see, this is the point that he's making, that and you all's ages. So you were 5, Dom was 7, Eric was 9. So at that point, Ron, right? So again, if we're talking to families and helping people understand, wait a minute, this is a little similar. How do you navigate this then? Hold on. I would say at that age, even figuring out how to have appropriate level conversations with you all would have been more appropriate in a different way, which did not happen, because you would have been able to voice, well, wait, I got a mom. And then we could have figured this thing out a little bit differently. You see what I'm saying?
I do. Let me see if I can bridge the gap a little bit in what you guys are saying. I see in what both of your responses there, a typical adult and child response. So Jayla looking back at who she was and how she felt about all of this then. So I hear in Jessica, you saying, wow, I felt the urge of responsibility. Here they are in my household. They're not really interacting a lot. My husband's not interacting with his ex. They're not co-parenting really functionally together. There's a big gap. I'm here. Expectations are high. I'm going to try to fill that role. That I often find is the wonderful, marvelous step-parent, often stepmoms, who want to fill all those gaps and want to live these kids really well and care for them. Actually, that eagerness sometimes means you end up doing more than you need to, more than you should, because the child experience is, Jayla was just saying, well, I still feel connected to my mom. Even though she wasn't sort of in the picture as much as somebody wished she was, I felt connected to her. I felt like she was still my mom. I still had that attachment. That would be the word I would use. And that is stereotypical step-parent versus child. Step-parents going, no, there's a gap. I need to fill it. Kids going, no, I don't think there's a big gap. It doesn't feel that way to me. And then those two agendas collide, right? It's goodwill collides with, I don't need your goodwill because I'm doing just fine over here. I'm telling you, that is almost universal. And so one of the principles we give step parents is pace with the child. You may be eager. You may be jumping in there. I got to right all the wrongs. No, really, you don't. I mean, listen to what the child's telling you about their connection with their other parent and find your place in that picture as a caregiver, as a helper, supporter, but don't violate that child's relationship with the other parent, or it will ripple back hard on you and just create confusion and conflict in your home. And so, that's the typical thing that we often try to help. I think one of the things I do is I try to help adults understand kids in blended families. Yeah. Like at the end of the day,
you're doing a good job of it. So
at the end of the day, if we can close that gap, blended families bond more quickly, they have less conflict, and they find their way into better spaces. As long as there's a big gap between the adults and I don't just mean step parents, because the bio parent in this case, the father, they often have really high expectations that are unrealistic as well. So if I can close the gap between the adults and the children, they tend to do better.
I agree. That's real.
Yeah.
That's real. I'm just
not us both sitting here
right, Lord. Well, it is.
So
that's
we're doing therapy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, well, and it's listen, every
episode,
every time we talk about that, because again, number one, I mean, we've been through. There's no way we'd still be a family without counseling. Period. And we have talked very openly about the fact that Ty and I hit a point when we were 10 years in. We just celebrated 22 years a couple days ago. December 7th made 22 years for us. So very, very grateful. But that teenage thing we was talking about, when the top 4 were all teenagers, and Jayla and I we had a huge gap at that point because she was struggling with all of just our relationship. But she's a young lady, a teenager, and the difference between our house and her mom's house, there was a lot. And we hit a point, Jaylen was going through, that's when, he was graduating high school and packed a bag and was like, I'm out of this joint, you know what I'm saying? Like, because of him and Ty struggling. And we literally were talking, we were like, we don't know that we can make it, right? We think we contemplated divorce, but we made a choice, right, Ron? We made a choice and said, we'll give this one more chance via starting counseling again, and dug in deep. And really, really, quite honestly, one of my favorite phrases right now, because it's the truth and it means a lot. We leaned into our faith and we really had to trust God to, man, give us all the patience, the hope, the love, the understanding, and being able to respect each other's opinion, even though we were disagreeing about a lot when it came to parenting styles.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
That's one of the biggest gaps that we find in working with blended families is you got to get on the same page about how you're going to parent the kids. Let me throw one other developmental observation into what you were just saying. The kids were relatively young when you guys got married. Mm-hmm. A lot of people just assume that means smooth sailing, and sometimes it does. And sometimes what you need to look for is when adolescence hits, then there's this, wait a minute.
What
if
happened?
I was living with mom and dad, if they'd never gotten divorced, my life would be so much better and different. And, I wouldn't have to deal with you. And I'm missing my mom. I'm with this parent more than I'm with that parent. And this person doesn't get to come to my piano recitals like the other parent does. And it just creates an angst where it's almost like we have to revisit who we are as a family all over again. And that's actually very normal and predictable. And the reason I say that is because it throws a lot of couples, in particular step-parents, for a loop when it happens. Because they're like, wait a minute, we were getting along great for 10 years. Now this kid's telling me I'm not her dad and I can't tell her what to say or what to do. And it's like, where did that come from? Well, It just comes from the angst of that identity crisis stuff that happens with an adolescent. But it also is then identity crisis for the family unit. Again, we're just revisiting who are we, how are we family, and how do we get along? And you press in, you lean in, you listen. Some step parents need to back up a little bit, not try to press so close to that child during that season. But it doesn't mean you've lost them. It doesn't mean the 10 good years were for naught. It just means we're going to have to wrestle with this again. The analogy I would give is, why do children who are adopted as a 2-month-old into a loving Christian, amazing family, why do they at the age of 25 travel halfway around the world to find their birth parents? Because there's something going on in their identity. They've got to figure this out. They got to ask it again as an adult, not just as a kid. And so the journey continues, and you allow them to go on that journey to find their roots, to figure out where their connections came from, and to resolve that question in their mind, and then they can come back to you.
That's real.
That was good. We're over here just absorbing. We're
because
sponges.
he called it. I feel like that's really what happened.
Yeah.
In particular with you when we went through that.
Yeah, I've had like 17 midlife crises, and I'm only 27.
How old are you now, girl?
I'm 27.
Come on.
Right. Tell her, Rod. Cut it out.
Yeah, roller coaster is an understatement for life. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and land this plane. So we do really appreciate you coming on and talking with us today. And we want you to give out some resources that you have that you could potentially share with our audience on blended families. And we can put a link down below for them to be able to visit your website to get those resources. So.
But tell the people what you got going on, because we want everybody to know what's out there. Because I told you, we were just floored when we found you. Like, how did we not know you existed?
So at this point, we have, you name it, we have a delivery method to get you the information you want. So we have video, we have audio, we have book, we have workbook, we have small group tools and resources. Pick what works for you and go get it. Go to rondeal.org, and you'll be able to link to all the little groups and ministries and things that we have hands in, all our small group tools. I have 9 books on blended family living and life. And so they cover topics from the smart stepmom to the smart step family to having a strong marriage, building love together in blended families. Is all about how to apply the 5 love languages to your particular family journey. So lots of resources in print. I do a podcast called the Family Life Blended Podcast. We got 140, episodes out, something like that. They're on YouTube as well. So with YouTube channel, lots of good resources there, Spanish resources on our YouTube channel.
Nice. Awesome.
So again, rondeal.org will get you connected to all of that. And I do want to mention one other resource I'm super excited about. So in January 2025, my wife and I are releasing a new book called The Mindful Marriage.
Awesome.
And this is the first book I've written for all couples, not just blended family couples. But I have to tell you, I really think this is the most important book I've written for blended couples, because it is the deep, deep, deep dive into neuroscience. A whole bunch of stuff is integrated into this model that my wife and I learned. The book is really our testimony of how our marriage about blew up in 2007. And the counselor we met, who happened to be a brilliant theoretician who was creating a therapy that's now used all over the world. And we have partnered with him and his wife to teach that material in the Mindful Marriage.
Awesome.
But it helps you take your past, figure out how that impacts who you are in the present, and then helps you have a plan to figure out who you want to be in the future. So many blended couples have a pain story. You've had that backdrop, whether it's childhood or a first marriage or a third marriage, whatever it is, it's there. And we're going to help you figure out how that impacts you neurologically, which is amazing, by the way, as well as how it impacts your kids. So there's a parenting component to this. It sort of walks itself out of you in every aspect of your life. We're super excited about it, and people can learn about it. You can pre-order now, but book comes out January 7th, The Mindful Marriage.
The Mindful Marriage.
That awesome. We'll be getting a copy. So my husband's standing back here behind the camera. I'm going, we'll be getting a copy of that deal.
All right.
Yes. I also, we were so blessed by attending the Step Family Summit. I just want you to give a little plug for that. I know there's another virtual opportunity, but I want people to know so that they can go look for that too and plan now, Ron, right? Because that was so helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you for reminding me. So every year our team puts on 2 major events. In the spring, April 5th of 2025, we're going to do a live stream called Blended and Blessed. You can be sitting at your home watching on your phone, your laptop, or your TV, or you can be at your church gathered with 100 couples watching this event together. It's very affordable. We're going to be live in near the Nashville area doing the event this year, but it's live streamed literally all over the world. We had 22 countries join us last year for the event.
Phenomenal.
And you can get the recording if you can't make it. But Saturday, April 5th, Blended and Blessed. That's to build blended family marriages. Okay. Yes. What you guys attended, what we do in the fall. So next October, we will put on a 2-day equipping event for coaches, counselors, pastors, folks like you who are pouring into other people. And it's designed to help you gain a model, ideas, and background for how you reach out and connect with and build into other people. So we call that the Summit on Step Family Ministry.
Yes.
And so those are annual events. They happen every year in the spring and the fall. Again, if you go to rondeal.org and just start clicking around, you'll find all these different resources.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I am so glad that you came to join us today. We really, really appreciate you.
I feel like we need to book a whole day with Ron.
Right. Let's go sightseeing, talk about our lives.
We'll have to have you back regularly because, man,
let's do it. It'd be fun.
And we'd love to join you as well and have conversations. But to be able to connect and partner, because we consider it partnering with someone, and you've been doing this work for 30 plus years. And it's so funny that I love your analogy of the male OBGYN, because I was like, Jayla, I was like, Jayla, wait. And we just assumed that you were in a blended family. So the reality that you took on the work, even when that is not been you and Nan's, your personal story, I think that is absolutely phenomenal. And just thank you on behalf of blended families everywhere for your previous and continued work in this space. So we just are so grateful, so grateful, and we're being mindful of time because we'll sit here and talk to you all day long.
Well, let me just say thank you, and let me return the favor, because you guys are unique, mother and daughter, talking about real life blended family stuff. Like, that is so special, and you guys just need to keep doing this.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. We appreciate that. We appreciate it very much. So you're gonna come back and join us again, right? We're gonna keep going on topics, all right? Because there's a wealth, and again, we're grateful. We'll make sure we have your links up there, and to our audience, we are so blessed and grateful to have Ron join us. And you guys got to go check, like you said, rondeal.org. Click away. I've been clicking. Look, I actually ordered, like, I have a stack of your books, I kid you not, sitting up here that I hand out to other people, because I was like, while we are learning and we're working and creating resources to join the work that's already in progress, I was like, you need this book, you need this book, you need this book. I'm not kidding, Jayla, am I lying? Yeah, so seriously. Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you so much. We appreciate your time on today. And we look forward to having you back, and let us know when you're ready for us to come join you on your podcast as well. So I will. That's a wrap for today, and we'll be talking some more with Mr. Ron Deal. Check him out, and we'll keep going as we work together to pour into blended families everywhere.
All right. We'll see you guys next week. Have a good night.